Hi, this is my first video on this channel, Chat with Jesus Knows All. Just like to mention, I do write a daily blog, jesusknowsall.org. And the reason I want to do a video today is just to share about something from my life, and I hope it's beneficial for people. What I want to talk about today is that January 6th is my father's birthday. He died in 2009, and the story behind it is, well, I think I hope help some people. The thing with my father and I is that we did not always have the best relationship. He was an alcoholic. When I was a kid, he was either emotionally distant, sometimes abusive, sometimes present. We just didn't know which dad we're going to have. As a teenager, that became rather tumultuous on my end of it, and when I was in my 20s, we didn't really have a whole lot of communication. I go sometimes to his AA meetings, but he didn't really seem to be all that interested. After I rededicated my life to Christ in July 1989, I tried to share Jesus with him, but he didn't really seem to be all that interested, and so I would just kind of pray and let him live his life. But it's pretty distant. And then all of a sudden, in the early 2000s, I noticed that he was starting to try to reconnect. He was trying to go about his own way that I don't think he really knew how. He's trying to reconnect. And I think he showed regret. And for me, that was a big part of it, was that even though he didn't have the ability, he was kind of almost like the shell of the man that he was when he was younger, he didn't really have the ability to open up and really get real with me. But I noticed that he had regret. And anytime somebody's been through any kind of a trauma, like childhood trauma or whatever, if the other person shows regret, that makes a big difference. At least for me, it made a lot of difference. So I would, try to, as best I could, to, to connect with him. But still, he didn't have any interest in my faith as a Christian, but he seemed to want to reconnect at times. Then something changed, and what changed was that in February 2008, he was in the hospital. He needed to have at that time they've said quintuple bypass surgery on his heart. I went to see him in the hospital. He was laying in his hospital bed, and I said, "Dad, you know what I wanted to talk to you about, but there's something that you don't know. I forgave you a long time ago." Now, he couldn't talk, but when I said that, I forgave you a long time ago, I noticed a tear come out of his eye. He was starting to weep up a little bit. It was at that moment that I said, "Dad, it's not a question of if or when. The question is, are you ready? Are you ready to go meet with Jesus? I know you can't talk, but if you want Jesus to forgive you, if you want Jesus to come into your life, just do this." And he went like this. I felt it was genuine when he did that, because then when I go to visit him in his nursing home or the hospital, he'd point to my Bible, wanting me to read the Bible to him. And then he put his hand up because he wanted me to hold his hand and pray with him. Basically, I was his pastor for the last months of his life. But there were other healing moments that happened, because I never felt like he was proud of me, that he was, really interested in me as a person. But there were times when he was in the hospital that I would go up to visit him, and I teach English second language, and there'd be people, somebody coming in and clean the room that from a different country, like from South Sudan, they spoke Nuer, and I'd say Malagua, which is a greeting there. Or from Vietnam, I'd say Cha Em and Ka Quay Kam, that's a greeting there. And I have this hobby of learning to greet people in their language. I can greet people in 30 languages. And as he'd see me do that, he'd be like, look at me, look at that person, look back at me. And I could see that there was a sense of pride that he had in me as a son. I never really felt that before. So even though he was feeble and he was kind of a shell of the man he was before, that was one of those healing moments. The thing is that, did I forget being dragged out of bed as a kid, being dragged out of bed for my sleep to be hit? Did I remember him being drunk and withdrawn? No, I don't forget that. But I was able to forgive him. And because I was able to forgive him, he finally made peace with Christ. So on the day that he died, I was with him reading the Bible to him. And he went to Jesus. I believe that I'll be reunited with him to see him in heaven. Forgiveness was the key that unlocked that door when I expressed that forgiveness to him. Now, with forgiveness, I think it's important to be careful that, to remember that forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Jesus calls us to forgive, but reconcile is a different issue. Reconciliation means that the relationship is brought back in. Now, my father and I did have some reconciliation, because like I said, I was his pastor, basically, when I went to visit him. He saw me greeting people in the hospital, all kinds of things like that. But there are times when reconciliation is really not possible. That was the case with my mother. She never showed regret, and we never really had any kind of reconciliation. Forgiveness, I forgave. And it's not always easy. Sometimes I have to go back and pray about that forgiveness. But that doesn't mean that forgiving someone does not mean the relationship is reconciled. And we need to remember that, because there are times when we need to guard ourselves and protect ourselves. Like I said, Jesus calls us to forgive, but he doesn't call us to be reconciled with somebody who is toxic, who will continue the abuse, who will not recognize or recognize the harm they've done or anything like that. So with my father, that happened. Today is his birthday. I'm glad that he's in heaven. I'm glad that I'll see him there, reunion with him. I'm glad that we have some reconciliation. Was it easy? No, it's never easy. Was it worth it? Yes. It was definitely worth it. And I hope that others can hear my brief story about that and realize that it's possible for them too. I hope that there can be healing moments for others in their lives, like I experienced in my life. Jesus can do great things.